Well, guys, today we're going to do a roundtable about real personal fiction, and to do this, I invited Jill Trumata. That I don't know if everyone was here when she did a talk in our last day of virtual week. She talked about um, her research related to the Afterbooks series, right? Uh, and actually also the movie, right? That was related to One Direction fanfiction. If I'm not wrong, am I wrong? It's One Direction fanfiction, right? The Afterbooks.
Yes, it was yeah, Harry Styles fan fiction and One Direction.
Very good. So, Jill, do you want to? I'm gonna give you some time to talk a bit because you're basically the reason we decided to do this because we really got interested in your research and we sparked a lot of talk. So, for people that were not here back then, please can you share a bit about your research?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Jill, and I am currently a second year at the University of Toronto, studying a double major in political science and sociology with a minor in book and media studies. The entire reason that I got to do this research was because I was in a course called Introduction to Book and Media Studies this past summer, and my professor was Siobhan O'Flynn, who also presented at the virtual week. And my final project had everything to do with a hyperrealism and capitalism through the After franchise, and I related that to Jean-Paul Droulard's Simulacra and Simulation, which was and it was just really interesting to look at and see something that I grew up with from a different lens. It was really interesting to see a new perspective on that, and I was very, very honored to share everything that I researched. It took a lot of time and effort, and I'm so happy that I found this community that has like is having this conversation because it's kind of a niche like subject to talk about and isn't something that you would think to talk about in an academic space.
Yeah, and it's difficult because I think RPF overall it's not we are not dealing with this yet. You're starting right now,
Hmm.
and I think it's because a lot of books are being made into movies
Yeah.
that came from right from fiction,
Yes.
RPF from fiction. Very good. All right. Anyone want to say something related to what Jill just spoke about, or do you want me to bring some things so we can discuss and think about? Or if you have some reflections, you please you can share with us. Go, ladies.
Hey guys, I'm gonna. Okay, my camera is on now. I'm sorry for that, my background. I'm not ready for this, but I was very interested in your research. I mean, just about what you said, it's really, really interesting. And I also grew up with One Direction. I'm still a huge fan of One Direction. And I think it's so, I don't know how to explain it. I don't have a lot of vocabulary to speak this in English, but um, I think there's a difference between the straight fan fictions on One Direction and the gay ones. And I root for the gay ones, okay? But I think when it comes to Harry Styles fan fictions, they also go to a way that is so interesting because they really I don't know, the audience is so big for this, and they turn into movies and turn into books, and not necessarily that things represents what the fandom wants to speak about. So I
Hmm.
think it's kind of funny because I was reading some essay, some papers a while ago, and they were talking about how fandom knowledge is specific And when people try to publish it as a book or as another type of medium, we still lose a lot of this context of this of its lore. So it's really interesting to speak about how the One Direction fan fictions just made a way for you to go through the media studies. I think it's this. I think it's just that.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting how it's just the content that One Direction has like given for like fan fiction writers all across like Tumblr, Wattpad, AO3. It's there's so many different like stories, and it's crazy that there are like so many different aspects to, like the lore of One Direction that is ingrained within these, stories that can be lost when translated into actual books where the names are changed because of legal issues. And yeah.
Oh, and also to speak about about the media studies that we got in this lore. I don't know if it started with One Direction, but I get it. I guess it was like it got big because of One Direction, like the fanfiction memes, and also the Your Name fanfictions,
Yes.
and
Yes.
how people try to use it now like as a trope and sometimes fix it. I don't know if you've seen it, but recently you had like a meme that was like the person that was behind or beside Your Name during some interaction with Harry Styles or Justin Bieber, BTS, or something like this. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is just how I felt when I was reading fan fiction. Okay, I could never be Your Name because she was too dumb for me. But okay, but they paved the way in so many things like the mafia kind of
Yes.
stories in the dark romance that now is not as dark as in the beginning, but they really paved the way in the media that I see right now and how they shaped the fandom really. Like I don't know if you know the term purichins. I don't know if it's just a Brazilian slang
Mhm.
but it's like teens that don't like to interact with explicit content,
Mhm.
but they were really judged about and kind of hypocrites. So we call it Puritans. And I don't know how to say this, but the fandom that was like the fandom in 2014 is different from the one here in 2025, and not only because we have this evolution of social media, but also because people are like in a different behavior and are really judged about content that is part of the lore of the fandom,
Mhm.
and it really impacts the fan fictions.
Yeah, I was way too young when like One Direction was huge. I'm only 19 years old, so I wasn't like a part of the entire like boom of Wattpad and everything, but I really started to get into it when I like COVID, so I was the age where like I was isolated, I had nothing to do, and I discovered fan fiction for the first time, and it was a completely different experience than what people back in like 2013 would have experienced, because it was an entirely different era of One Direction that I was experiencing. Like the band was completely like disbanded. Nobody was like the fandom was like not that like tight knit as it was before. So I got a completely different experience, but I still know the impact that One Direction fan fiction has had on today's like entirety of fan fiction across all like fandoms, even like tropes. I think of like specific tropes and I think, oh, that like came from One Direction fan fiction. Like so many different fan fiction tropes and ideas can be traced back to the originality of One Direction and Wattpad back in like 2012. So it's very, very interesting to see the evolution of that, and how One Direction is still ingrained in the culture of fan fiction, although they're not together anymore. They still have had such a huge impact.
It's funny that you mentioned the impact because I think it was. last week. I don't remember. But basically, we here at NEP we are creating this dictionary about fanfiction terminology, and we are discussing the expression "sold to the boy band," which goes back
Yes, yes,
to
yes.
One Direction.
That's the like the one trope that I'm thinking of. Like in like I was kidnapped by One Direction.
Yeah, and the discussion was basically like, it's kidnapped by the by band, or is it sold by? And everyone's like,
It's both. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's
like
both. But I think the one that got more attention at the end ended up being the sold.
mhm,
But it was really funny, and
yes.
this is
So
all about that.
just to add this discussion, also I'm sorry I had a little delay here, so I had to come in a little bit later. But something that really comes to mind when we talk about One Direction is the idea of just having your hair tucked back
Yes,
and
yes.
just you're reading a book and you're performing a bit, just trying to be
The
chill and
messy
all.
bun.
And then all of a sudden he sees you and he sees that you're not paying so much attention. So that's what that idea I feel like probably people had about other actors and stuff, but One Direction really made this a big thing. And also something that I was reading recently. I totally forgot the name of the book right now, but I'll try to remember until later. But it's oh yeah, it's the fan how the fangirl changed how internet works basically. And the book begins with a scene from a One Direction show. So basically, someone just recorded a part of the show, and Niall spoke one of the words wrong. He pronounced it in a weird way, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, this is so funny!" And it became a meme, And years after they broke up, it was still a meme, and those type of connected, those shared knowledge that yeah, we took a chance
Yes, yes.
exactly that that is something so specific to RPF fan fiction, because you have that idea and you usually put that stuff there because the memes, the news, the stuff that gets around, that's how we know them, yeah, like we don't know them, but that's what we know about them, so that's usually highlighted in fan fiction. And I was thinking a lot about this because I was reading about the Love Hypothesis
Mhm.
adaptation, and I was thinking about it because it's basically Adam Driver, and we don't know Adam Driver, but the way the movie is gonna be like, it is not Adam Driver because they can't do that. How much context about this character is going to be lost? And that's something that really comes to mind for me when we talk about adaptations, and when RPF fanfiction stops being fanfiction and becomes a different product. Because you're losing what makes that something, that shared knowledge, that idea of someone that kind of goes missing. And it's something that I've been thinking a lot about recently because I don't know, I guess the movie is coming up, and those questionings make me think like how media is going to go forward. I guess I really kept thinking when you were talking about in your presentation the virtual week, the idea of losing the meaning and being uh, an empty signifier in a way, this idea of losing the essence of what it was supposed to be, and we're just seeing the replica, the remix of something that is not even the root of that content is not even attached
Mhm.
to it anymore. So it's so interesting to me to see how pop culture is moving. It's just a reflection, and I guess some of you can share a light on my ideas.
Yeah. Oh, that's like an incredible insight that, really deepens my research. Yeah, like the little things that are said within concerts that people don't understand if you're not in the fandom. And they're so ingrained within the stories that are written. And when you adapt that into, movies, you lose a part of that because you have to condense everything into like an hour and a half. And when like fans go and watch, because they're incentivized to go watch these movies because they know the origins and they know that something I love and I'm interested in has been like is the origin of this is why it's created. I want to go see the reflection of that. And when they go to see it and they're like, but that's not accurate to what I've experienced or what I've read, it's kind of like disappointing in a way. But it's what can you do about having like this community? Fan fiction builds such a big community, and you have all of these little aspects from like fandoms that go into these stories. And when they're lost, when they're adapted into like bigger projects, it's kind of disappointing because you feel like you lose that and you're like being shot into a bigger community. And it's like I had this niche thing that I was understanding and it's not there anymore, so who do I talk to about this?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Lais, please.
I was talking too much because I'm really getting excited here, guys. I'm sorry, but Rafael, oh my God, this was a really good insight because since I'm in the fandom, and sometimes I try to understand. I don't know, just to explain some kind of things that I get it. But now that you gave me like outside look, also outside look, it got I got everything in my mind right now, like the memes with your name, with the high and going to Starbucks and being poor as hell, but also have the newest iPhone. This is like crazy. And I guess when it comes to One Direction, it was I started from fictions when I was like 13 years old, and it was with Percy Jackson. But then I went to One Direction thing, still part of the both fandoms, but I went to One Direction things, and I read both straight and gay fan fictions, and I think it's really interesting how each part of the fandom portrayed them. I mean, when it comes to straight things, they have like this personality that they have to be alpha boys, and they're like fighting for a girl. And I don't know how it comes for like abroad, but in Brazil we have like some platform for reading from fictions that we use almost like Wattpad, but have like our national ones. There was Nia Fanfiction and Spirit Fanfictions, and they when you upload the story, you have to put a cover. There is like fan made, and that it is really poor. But and it was in this case that was like kidnapping and abducting and assaulting. It was like always Barbara Palvin or Kendall Jenner or Kylie Jenner being the your name, and I was like, oh my goodness, I remember this era, and I don't know if the um, the other countries got that part of the culture as well, but it was always like that. And always like some girlfriend of them at the time was like the villain for the your name, or maybe like I don't know, the best friend for her or something like that. Meanwhile, the gay fan fictions, I don't know, they portrayed them a little more approachable. I don't know how to explain this, but they really get more of the personality, not the personality that is trying to pursue some girl, but the personality that they're like, oh, we're caring, but we're like just five guys that are kind of dumb and don't know how to dance. And I get it. It's really cool. And I don't know. This is just two words. It's the best of both worlds. So it's very interesting to understand these behaviors, like for both sides. Also, how it interprets. It goes with the when it goes to books, because when you go like to after, or I don't know the name of the book, but it was really recently adapted for for a movie. There was like Nicholas Galitzny in and Anne Hathaway like playing. You know what it is? I really forgot the name. And 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 it portrayed like Harry pursuing a girl. It can be younger than him or older than the idea of you. Thank you, Rafaela. Older than you and everything, and they get it a different personality. And I was like, here in Brazil, I follow some authors that publish the fanfiction as a book after, and just change the names and the context and everything. And it was like, oh my goodness, this story is, there's a plot here that I'm really into it, but it feels very different from when I like read after, and the idea of you. I just read some parts and quotes, but still it was really different. But it's still, there's impact in that, you know. And it's really strange because for a while I have realized that if you're part of the straight fandom, there's specific names that comes from the fanfictions and the lore of this, that the gay part of the fandom don't get it, and it happens like vice versa, and it's really really interesting. I don't know if you were able to notice it as well.
Yeah, totally. I can speak like really, really in depthly about like the straight fan fiction because I like honestly people read fan fiction as self-insertion. So you read what you want to like experience kind of. So I would read these fan fictions from the perspective of, a heterosexual female. So yeah, I can totally relate to the like covers. I just saw a tweet. Was it after the Victoria's Secret fashion show when Barbara Palvin she walked and people are like, "That's Wattpad's like princess. Don't talk to her. Don't talk about her badly. That's like Harry Styles' wife in the fan fictions." It's really funny to see like that insertion of you see somebody and it's like you immediately think, oh, at a point in time they were the face of like an entire fandom. But what I've noticed is that these like covers of fan fiction and the women that are being put into these like heterosexual fan like One Direction fan fictions are usually always white. So the people of color and women of color who want to like self-insert can't because they're immediately put in like the your name is white. So it's kind of difficult for women of color to experience what they want in fan fiction, even though there's no name. It's supposed to be your name, but the image of the woman is white. But as for gay fan fiction, I know it's a completely different like context and story that I would be very interested in learning about. And I'm very open to that. Although I've like read a few like snippets and tidbits of that, I can attest to the fact that it's completely different than what, straight fan fiction is.
Oh, I don't know if I could reply it, but it's really interesting. Really, I'm now in my master's degree, and I'm doing a master's degree in information science. Information science, here in the Federal University of Santa Catarina, Brazil. Um, and I was like, I researching about the information flux that comes with fanfictions, because we all know that fanfictions can be written in any part of a community that is able to interact. So it goes with social medias, blogs, and websites specifically built for this. So my theory is, every time that somebody posts a fic in social media or AO3 or Watchpad, it goes being shared, and it comes to the lore of the fandom. So it's in, I don't know how to say, but people feel so open to read and produce and consuming more of this. So this is my theory, and I'm doing this. And I was like, at the first, I was intending to do it with One Direction fan fictions, but with the gay ones, because there was more lore that I could use it as part of my project. But then I was like, oh my goodness, I don't think I can do it with One Direction right now, because I can't be professional with them. But it's really interesting because it happens in a lot of fandoms as well, and it happens in One Direction, in the straight one, in the gay one, and animes and TV shows, in every part of this, and it really builds a lore for this, and it really builds a behavior for this. I mean, during I don't know, I know, I think you said that you didn't was in the 20, 2013, 2014 era of One Direction, but it was when Tumblr was in its peak. So every time that you go for this part, everybody, you could identify a One Direction like fan just by seeing the clothes they are using, how they are like behaving because of this lore, I guess. Well, I'm gonna let Rafaela talk.
Yeah, I just like to circle back a bit to the racial part of reading fan fiction because I think it's a really important topic. And also, it reminded me that a lot of the fan fiction I read as a younger self, I'm 25 now, so like 2012, 2013, was Harry Potter. And I had a lot of a bit of an obsession, to be honest, with fanfics about Harry Potter that were not set in Hogwarts for some reason. So I would read about the characters, but in other places. And those fanfictions were basically, fanfictions about Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and all of those people. And there were a lot of white people, usually, and not a lot of, representation in general in the Harry Potter series. So it was very interesting to see some of the writers, mostly Brazilian writers, that tried to insert characters that were racially ambiguous sometimes, or had a racial profile. So, including the daughter of Shacklebolt or some other character that you barely see, but they had a son or a daughter or brother. And that's an interesting perspective as well, because, when we think about very famous boy bands and very famous actors and actresses, we usually associate them with other white people as well. So there's always a part of me that keeps checking if people are adding other diverse groups, to balance a bit, because I feel like the global south produces a lot of fan fiction, and I think we try to put ourselves in those type of stories mostly. So it's an interesting perspective, just trying to understand how the person, the writer, is negotiating with the racial politics of whatever the real person is, and I love that you said that about not having a lot of representation in One Direction fanfics, because I feel like when I read them, I usually just imagine myself in that situation, so I wasn't even thinking about it. But yeah, they were never, the an Asian girl or a black woman. They're usually just the stereotypical Victoria's Secrets model. And it's an interesting idea because representation matters. That's kind of obvious, but the idea that even when we are representing something that isn't real, we perpetuate those limitations in representation, and how this kind of shapes the way we perceive those stories as well. Because the idea of you, it's a white woman, it's an older white woman, and halfway now, so it's a very stereotypical white woman. So it's an interesting perspective, and I love that you mentioned it, because real person fan fiction, sometimes we focus a lot on the celebrities and how they are and how we see them, and we forget how we see us interacting with them.
I just wanted to point out about like what Rafaela said, because the racial part is very, I don't know how, I'm losing all my words, all my vocabulary in English. Okay, I'm sorry, but uh, English is not my first language. Okay, but this part of racial thing it's really true, because as a black girl here in Brazil, technically in Brazil I'm mixed, because I have this native part and the black part, but well, it was reading with your name fan fictions. It was really an experience because I never could be the your name. Just to beginning, my name is Laís, which is a very Brazilian name, and I also go with the my nickname La, which is shorter, but it's not a typical foreign name like English speaking name. So when it comes to this, they always put like your name here, your surname here. But it was like there, and sometimes it's like your name here, Matthews. How can I put my name in Matthew's surname? Like it didn't it like doesn't it didn't match. So I was like, okay, what I have to do now is read fan fictions where they already have a name for the character. There is your name, the original character. So I'm going for this. And after this, I guess it was because of this that after when I was like, I can see me reading these fan fictions where it's always white people's because they telling an experience that I couldn't do it. I think that's why I think your name is kind of dumb because she would I wouldn't do it. She goes like, "Ah, I think I'm gonna put these things, these groceries in my purse, and then I'm go check out. If I do this, I'm dead." But I'm sorry. I just put some heavy in the moment. But um, also because of this, I think gradually I went to the gay fan fictions because then I could feel more included. I guess there's this author this that did this fan fiction, the Gay One Direction. It's called Precious, and it's like a experience of Harry Styles being a trans girl and then start to exploring herself. In the end of the story, you were like, no, his name is not. Her name is Haza, and there's Louis, and they live happy ever after. I'm sorry, I'm putting things there, but it's really it's really interesting how you get closer to fan fictions that are closer of your experience as a person. Like I know people that just learn part of feminism and about free Palestine just because of things that are put in fan fictions because it shows a little of the writer's perspective of the world, so you can also absorb it and say, oh, I think this met with I think it's right. So that experience is always good to see, mainly in One Direction fan fictions because I love the guys.
Um, Getting what Lais was talking about, I think one thing that is important, like she's talking about the presence of gay fan fiction, like mostly non-straight, like put like this. I think it's more or queer fan fiction. I think one thing that we need to also reflect that is a very important part of RPF overall, and this I think it's one of the polemics about the topic, is like how um, do you talk about those things and the the separation between the person that appears in media and what you construct. I think that's like one of the core things about fan fiction, RPF specifically, because honestly, yes, I think nowadays, especially because with the rise of BL and GL, what you have a lot are queer fan fiction about real people, especially if you're going to look. I'm talking about BL because that's my specialty, guys, so give me a break. I wasn't part of, although I was fan of on One Direction, was into only their music. I didn't follow their career or anything like that. I just sat there and listened to their music, and that was it. But actors that I actually follow are just from BL and GL nowadays. And I think like what you guys think about this, because this is I think it's the most important part, and how do you deal with this? How can I put? It's I don't want to say problem because it's not a problem exactly, but how do you guys observe this kind of conflict like that? Let's put like this. I mean, a lot of, not a lot of, but many BL actors and GL actors also identify there as a queer, which is, I think, like, okay. But what other ideas you guys have related to this topic? Go, ladies.
Okay, I'm just raising my hand here because I'm excited. I'm sorry. I get really excited with fanfiction now with One Direction. I'm sorry. Can you stop me if you can if you want to? Okay, but also, with real people fanfiction, I don't know if I see it as polemic. I mean, uh, I'm so into the fandom because the reason why I'm speaking English with you guys is not only because I have English classes. It was also because I was a hardcore One Direction fan. I was like, I watched all their interviews and the subtitles in Portuguese. Like it took like 3 days after the interview just to wait and see it. So I had to learn English to see the interview as we speak. Okay, so that's why. But it was never a polemic for me because they really felt really close to me. So it's like this is a friend that I met on the internet, and the only thing is they don't know they're friends. It's just a one-side friendship, but we're still close somehow. So it's not like it was for me. It was never like a polemic, but people made it a polemic. Like if you read fan fictions with them being gays, then you're calling them gays, and gay it's like saying gays are wrong or something like that. But it's nothing like that. Or like if you read fan fiction with Harry Styles, it's like you're sexualizing him, and you're like, I mean, I'm sorry, girl. I know this man here. I saw their silly side and I saw their serious side. So it's just another fan trying to mimicate like a situation here, and they sharing first to get the Lulu together. So it was never a polemic for me. But I know that after, I guess this is a polemic just after the pandemic, because after during and after the pandemic, because of the isolation and because we couldn't see each other, we got more screen time and more social media time. So people were like, I have opinions to give, and I want you all to do it. And sometimes some people like did opinions that others started to follow and follow and follow around without really thinking through it, like without putting the sensible ties to it. So I think this is just a polemic because of social media. I don't think that if you go outside, I don't think even the guys and even any artists that you see around or follow their career, they're gonna say, oh yeah, we know what fanfiction is. We know basically some memes, but they can keep going. Like, I don't think it's a problem for them. It's not a problem for the fan. I think just people trying to put in the wrong side of this when there's no wrong sides. It's just pure expression, I guess. I don't know if I spoke like right in this, if you understood me, but I tried.
Ju, you can go.
Okay. Oh, it's me.
Yes.
Don't even know how do I put it down. Uh, I'm so sorry I'm late. I tried to get the link to open 1,000 times, but it wouldn't work. And then I deleted the app and I downloaded the app again. And then I reloaded everything. So I got here really late. I apologize for that. Uh, but if we're talking about RPF, I have very unpopular opinions on RPF. I think the percentage of the fandom that is actually uh, see
RPF as a portrayal of real life is actually really small, but because fandoms get so big, that small percentage has a much bigger voice than we think. So, like 8% of a fandom that has 100 people is 8 people, but 8% of a fandom that has a million people is 800 people. So, that voice gets really loud. But I think in regards to what Natalia said about BL, I think the BL industry was more problematic than it is now. Back in the days, like 10 years ago, I think we started the BL community with very toxic traits, especially within the BL industry itself. A lot of actors didn't weren't about a part of the LGBTQ plus community. A lot of the actors were straight people, homophobic people who used BL as a stepping stone for their career. So they started with BL series, and then they transitioned to straight content, and they mistreated cast members, and so the community itself was not uh, an activist community. It was a marketing stunt for the bigger part of the beginning of BL. And now we've seen a very strong shift in the industry where we're getting actors coming out, actors who are actually LGBT playing LGBT. Uh, and the fan service, I think fan service in Asia is a whole different ball game
Yeah.
than it is in the West. It's a different ball game. It's much bigger. It's much more intense, and we expect a lot more. And it does feed some of the delusional part of the fandom, and I think Western fandoms do not have as big of a of a gap between the artists, the part of the fandom that uses it for fun and the part of the fandom that actually does toxic actions. But I do think that is slowing down. I think that is better, at least when we're talking about the BL community. I think the shift in the industry is very clear to see nowadays, especially with the younger couples that we are seeing playing on TV. I think even if you take a look at the BL itself, a lot of toxic images that we used to have, like a lot of non consensual stuff, uh, a lot of crimes that used to happen in BL series are starting to get called out, are starting to not appear as much. Consent is being more common in series like Between Us, like Cutie Pie. So I think there is a shift. I think the there's still a lot of problematic stuff in the industry and the fandom, but I do think it's getting better from the past couple of years. Maybe from the beginning of the pandemic to now, I've seen the biggest shift. And yeah, I was there for the One Direction craze. I don't know. I guess I didn't fall into it as much as I think I was more of a 5 Seconds of Summer girly, so I ended up not getting as invested. But I did remember how powerful the fandom was. It was very powerful, and it was kind of scary. But if you guys think about it, nowadays, K-pop groups have a lot of fanfiction. Even groups that you think are small get a lot of fanfiction. They have more fanfiction than One Direction, for example. BTS has already hit the top storage in AO3, so now you can't see all the BTS fanfictions. You have to filter to see everything because there's more than 150,000 fanfictions of BTS. So, I mean, it's a different type of boy band fandom, but we're still very much in the same place than we were before. But yeah, that is what I think about the BL industry in specific. I think, guys, BL is it's very good. You guys should watch it. It's great.
It's kind of funny because I don't consume a lot of BL or GL, but I have a very different perspective than Legs, I guess. And it kind of goes with what Julia is saying here in the chat. I'm gonna read her message real quick, and then I'm gonna talk about what I perceive. So Julia said, "Hi guys, I come from a different kind of fandom: hockey, RPF, UK, YouTube, RPF, and I think the level of celebrity kind of shoots some people like Harry Styles or different idols from feeling like the fans are ascribing things to them instead of to their celebrity persona when they write RPF. Whereas a person whose celebrity status is more unclear and their public facing persona is not as obviously separate from their person, in quotes, has a much harder time negotiating with how fans perceive them. What do you think? And then she said, sorry that she isn't able to turn on her mic, which is totally okay. Uh, Something that I think I saw a lot when I was younger, as a big fan of One Direction, I think I actually became a much bigger fan of 5 Seconds of Summer because of this discussion in the fandom. But there was a lot of discussion and I guess divide in fans of One Direction between people that thought it was okay to write gay fan fiction about One Direction and people that thought it wasn't okay to write fan fiction about One Direction. And I guess the main discussion about it was Larry and Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson. And a lot of this still remains as a stigma and also as a they stopped being friends because people were saying they were boyfriends. And at the same time, I think, okay, maybe that's a bit harsh, maybe a bit too much. I forgot to turn, put my hand down. Sorry. Uh, at the same time, I think a lot of people thought, oh, it was too much. It is important to think about how the industry was like 12 years ago and how people being gay in general isn't something so accepted in media, mostly in a boy band that appeals to teen girls, you know? So I do think it was very complicated for them and how to deal with it because it's like, oh, they're friends, so they're together always and they are in a band together. So how do you control this type of discussion and at the same time how investors would see that as a brand person, you know, you're always thinking, I imagine that as a an advertising uh, professional, I always think about that idea of, you know, how that would impact the One Direction brand. And I do think it was a problem for them. I do think it was something that they were concerned, and I do believe it was not well seen by the company that run One Direction in general. So that's something that I always think about when I'm writing, sorry, when I'm reading fan fiction about real people, because even when they are explicitly gay or bisexual or whatever, there's always a big side of projection that we're doing when we're writing about them and when we are reading about them. So that aspect of our sexualities is so hard to portray, you know, and it's so complicated because we really don't know them. So it is an interesting discussion to have and to think about because I guess nowadays it wouldn't be as bad, it wouldn't be as negatively seen, but at the same time, I do think it is part of a much bigger discussion in our society of how we are okay with certain portrayals of men and women and how we're not okay with other portrayals, which I guess goes back to your research too, because thinking about how an abusive version of Harry Styles is something that it was so okay and people thought it was fine and it became a movie, but you know, the idea of having him as a gay person in a fan fiction is way more frowned upon, you know. So that's kind of interesting to me, and I guess that's why I really like your research because I keep thinking about this how the idea of masculinity is so attached to how we write, you know, and how we read about characters that we see in our everyday lives. Because you know, Harry can be the fun Harry, the girls Harry, you know, the idea of you Harry or the or the after Harry. So it's interesting to see how these different versions of him can be portrayed and how we have really serious problems when we're talking about one portrayal, but we don't have that as much when we are talking about others. I'm sorry, I kind of talked a lot, but yeah, that's my idea.
Just going back a bit about what you said, Rafa. I think it was, I don't remember, I think it's Judith Valhalla, that's her name. I don't know how to say it. I think it's Arabic, I'm not sure. And they have, she has research, and she talks about RPF. And she talks about how RPF is actually uh, it talks about a fictionalized addressee. So I think that a lot of when you get um, feedback from people outside of fandom, they don't understand the dynamic of the whole thing, how things are, for example. And I think the majority of people don't understand, and even people from fandom, I guess, they don't understand the idea that what we see on media is not them. I mean, when you're talking about um, celebrities that have a real celebrity life, how like Ju said, and which I mean, hairstyles, actors from BL, on direction, and all of this. They are people that have this. One thing that always comes to my mind in the last couple of years is what happened to Jackson Wang. If I'm not wrong, and Julia can correct me, his role in God Seven was like the serious guy, but after he got out of his
Wait, who are we talking about?
Jackson.
Oh, girl. Yeah, go on.
Who else? And when he got out of oh my god, I forgot the name of his the company that God Seven was under. But when he got out, we started seeing more of
JYP.
yeah, JYP, thank you. More of his real personality, let's put like this. Like he was someone more part all over the party, stuff like that. That was something that we joke on fandom. Because nobody actually I don't know because I didn't get this going back to the story that we have a dictionary about fanfiction terminology. One of them is Wang's party, and this Jackson Wang party is like it ended up in many fanfiction. It broke the barrier from the bubble.
Can
Uh,
I just
what?
correct you in something?
What?
It's not that Jackson was a serious person. He was always a bit of a goofball. But the thing is, how I separate Jackson before and after leaving JYP is that Jackson was censored in JYP. He could not be as sexual, as cursed, and as just loose as he is now. I still think he has the same personality. I just think he was very
Mm-hmm.
subdued due to the censorship that the company did. And what my theory now about the Jackson Wang party host tag is that the fandom saw through the censorship and saw that he was actually a bit of a party animal even before he was allowed to be that way. And then after he left JYP, he started like really playing into who we thought he was. He started going to parties. He started taking fans on dates after shows. He drank vodka on stage and stuff. And he was still the same person. He was still very gentleman. He was still very kind. He was still very goofy and very retrospective like he was before. But suddenly there was an adult aspect that the companies tend to subdue on the idols that we saw through before he left. So now everybody's like, oh my god, he is actually the party host. But in reality, I think we saw that there was a part of him that was like that couldn't really come out,
Mm-hmm.
and now it is very out. Like it's everybody can see it. So I think that's the thing. I think K-pop idols, they have roles and archetypes that we play a lot in fanfiction with, but they're still allowed to be themselves within a certain amount of censorship, and some of them play more into the roles that they have and others don't. Some are very obvious and say like Jin from BTS in the beginning of BTS in 2013, Jin was supposed to be the mysterious guy. And like a year later he said, I can't. It doesn't fit me. I'm just gonna be whoever the hell I want to be. And then he became the goofy parent of the group. So I think because idols are constantly in front of the camera 99.999% of their time, they can't quite fake the persona as much as Western artists can because they're not in front of the camera as much. So the fandom gets to see truer parts of their personality than I think the fandom in the West, which is why we clocked Jackson before he was free to be Jackson. But that's just speculation. I would love to see research done about it because it's
Yeah.
such an interesting phenomenon in the fandom society.
And this is also a problem. This is what you mentioned, that the fact that we see a lot of that of those celebrities, like K-pop people, it kind of feeds on the behavior that that fandom has, like a small part, but that is very scary, and like that end up like running after the guy in a airport, something like that. So this is also this kind of media also isn't helpful for them to and the fandom, because this is not a good way to act. Okay, but this doesn't have a lot to do with RPF itself. But yeah, K-pop is a whole kind of different thing. Now I'll let Jill speak. Go, Jill.
Yeah, all of this was really insightful as I'm not like very in tune with BL, GL, or K-pop fandom as I used to be very, very into K-pop back in 2017, but I'm not anymore, unfortunately. But I did experience some sort of like fan fiction back then, but I can't remember much about it. But hearing all of this, because I had the version of Jackson back in like 2017 when he was still in like that persona of GOT7, and hearing about it now, it's really interesting to hear. And going back to, you know, like the separation of who like the person in the fan fiction is to the real life person. As Julia mentioned, it's like it's a very small community of people who actually see the fan fiction as a representation of who the person is, but it's still there. That community is still there, and that like kind of builds on what Anna actually mentioned it earlier in the comments, in the messages, like parasocial relationships, people ascribing traits to a certain individual and seeing them act that way. That's like, oh, that's how this person acted in this story that I read. That must be a reflection of how they actually are. Well, we have to remember that we're only seeing like a version of the celebrity or individual that we're reading about through what they want to show us, and we're writing what like we're interpreting their actions in like a way that we want to see. And we actually don't know this person, even though like the way that we're writing about them, we're like we're perceiving them as like, you know, as Leia said, like a friend. We feel as though we're close to them, but it's actually like we're not. And it kind of builds on like a parasocial relationship, even though we don't intend it to be. And I feel like that's an issue with RPF. It's a small like community of people that feel that way or see that way, but it is still like an important conversation to have. Like when like people like Harry Styles, for example, and when people see like photos or videos of him acting a certain way, I've seen tweets are being like, "Oh, this is so like duplicity, Harry." Duplicity being a very huge Harry Styles fan fiction. The way that Harry is acting is very much in line with this, and that like it kind of adds to that notion.
I guess it's me now, but it's. I mean, I there's so much layers on this. I mean, this is not even. like a cake anymore because there's so much layers to go through it. And I mean, the archetypes. I don't know who was the first to mention it, but it's like so accurate. Like uh, talking about One Direction. One Direction was a boy band, and this audience was like teenage girls and girls going like almost 10 to like 18 years old. That was their audience. So the way they were shaped to act in front of the camera was more like, okay, you can be goofy, but you also have to be a little bit sexy, and you also have to be a little bit funny. But you can like do curse words in front of them, and have to also be a little bit like a good example. If you do like something that's not good and good example, something that could be put as a funny thing. So that's why when you go like see One Direction as a band, and until like 20 2015, I'm gonna say 2015 because they were like the five of them there. No, 2014 I guess, because I think then left the band on March of 20. No, it was 2015. I'm sorry. Dates are not my thing. Okay, dates are not my thing. But but also it's really interesting how they were a persona when they were in the band and another persona when they were like doing solo career, pursuing solo careers. Like if you go with Louis Tomlinson, this is I love Louis. Okay, I'm a Louis girl, but um, if you go with Louis, they were like the funny one. So he did a bit of bad things that are like still funny and like a little bit innocent, so they go with it. People just say, "Oh, there's no turn the blind eye." So, but when he went to solo career, he never like did a curse word when he was in One Direction. But when he go to pursuing solo career, I don't know. This man just said, I don't know if I say curse words here. I'm sorry, but but he said so many curse words that now basically part of my vocabulary is curse words and bad words because he did it so much. And also, if you go with Niall there in One Direction, he had to be the blonde one. But when he go to pursue the solo career, the first thing that he did was like, "I want to have my natural hair back," and he was like gorgeous. Thank you God he did this natural hair because his hair was like screaming through the last years of One Direction. Because okay, but and also Harry then. Harry was like, if you go see his hairstyle when he was in One Direction and when he was pursuing solo career was like a different, totally different things because Harry in One Direction he never did colors, but when he was like in solo career, the first thing that was like highlighting his presence was like, oh my god, this guy is wearing pink. This guy is wearing like glitter and everything. In One Direction, the closest that he got to some glitter thing or colorful things was when he was wearing some boots that was having glitter and it was like golden. It was the closest thing. And I was like saying this in the message here in the chat, but um, when there was the this is a stock, they mentioned it was Louis and Leon, I guess. They were mentioned that they had this huge fight in the beginning of One Direction when they were like still in their X Sector days or a little after they got in the band and everything. But they were like having this huge conversation, but having like talking like, oh, we have this huge fight and we felt like we have to let them go. And they started joking like, yeah, and now Niall had to be the mysterious one. And they were joking like the personas. And also, this is really interesting now that you're talking like pointing out this because I didn't really paid attention to this. But in a couple years ago, I don't know, during the pandemic, Harry did some sketches on the Late Late Show with James Corden, and it's just still on YouTube. And there was this sketch that he was like, um, trying to do a how to get solo after staying in a band for quite your entirely career. And he was like, if you're going to be solo after going having a band, you have to be the sexy one. And then he was adding, and he was like, "You have to be the sexy one, but also the funny one." It's not still that quite hard, but then have to the sexy one, the funny one, the mysterious one, and then the end of this, he was like, "Now I just sound like a creepy or something like this," because there's so much personas about this, and I still joke with this on fandom because of the archetypes that we have around it. I mean, I mean, I now I can't see Harry Styles being the mafia leader nowadays. I mean, this man just wants to run. He's in a marathon. He didn't even want to do a new album. I mean, someone put I don't know. He just wants to be unemployed or like just retire because he just wants to run right now. So I can see here he, him being like a mafia leader, but back in the day, this was a big thing because he was like he was the youngest, but uh, the archetype that he was portraying was really close to the leader, even though there's a little bit of polemic around this. But you know, this happens, so it's really quite interesting to see all the archetypes there are in the portrayed in One Direction and things as well. Oh my goodness, that my pronunciation is bad right now. I'm sorry, I got excited.
Você tá mutada, Rafa.
Sorry, guys.
Oh,
uh, Something that's kind of interesting about this is that we are mainly focusing on RPF about singers, and I guess something that comes to mind when I think about RPF is fanfics about actors, because I guess I read them more. But something that I've been working with a lot is paratextuality. So the idea that some elements that surround a story can influence how we perceive the story. And I guess something that I always thought about, and that I think affects a lot of the way we perceive cinema in general, is how we see those actors and how we see sometimes even their personalities, and you want to watch this movie because you think, I don't know, in my case, because I think Dylan O'Brien is a funny, good looking guy. I'm gonna watch whatever he does, and I'm always gonna watch that movie thinking, okay, it's the funny, good looking guy. And that's something that always comes to mind for me because it is very complicated when you're an actor, because a lot of the ideas that we have about them are based on their characters. So that adds a layer of RPF that is like, we're talking about a person, an actor, but we also adding traits that come from what he has done. And we are also adding a lens of how I think he is because, I like him. And I really enjoy thinking about how different actors and how their life stories impact the way I see a movie. So, for example, recently Jonathan Majors was fired from Disney because of his allegation, not allegations. He was accused of being sexually harassing someone, and I can't even watch the movies that he was in anymore because I keep thinking about it. So that's a more serious side of it, but it's also something that really impacts the way I perceive media in general and I perceive culture. And I guess whenever I'm reading a fanfic about an actress or an actor, I keep going back to it, just thinking, oh my God, how much of this story is based on interviews that this writer saw of this character and of this actor, sorry, and how much of it is just, oh, they watched the series that they were in and they're implying this personality that is the personality of the character is their personality. A recent example that I can think of is in Brazil specifically. We had a TV show, kind of a novella, uh, and there it was the first lesbian couple, I guess, a sapphic couple in this type of novella. And it was very interesting because a lot of people were kind of raising this discussion of, oh my god, the actors are probably gay because I don't know. And then a couple years later, one of them said they were actually bisexual, and this was a huge thing. And I kept thinking, like, guys, what is the difference? You know, it's an actor. They're interpreting something. But the fan fiction was always very aggressive with how they perceived the characters uh, that the actors played. You know, they were always very, how can I say this? They were very, like, they gave the impression that the character and the person was the same thing. And I guess this bothered me a lot because I like the actress. I don't necessarily like the character, but I really did like the actress. So I just didn't like stories that they wrote about them because, that's not who they are. And I guess that's just something that I was thinking because, again, we were mostly focusing on singers, and I guess in K-pop and boy bands in general, you have this archetype, so it's kind of a role they have to follow. But also there are multiple situations, like Julia had to leave, but she was talking about hockey, and I guess hockey is a big thing. Like fan fiction about hockey. We don't know them. We just know how they, you know, go through ice ring. And that's an interesting idea. I don't know, just something that I thought it would be interesting to add to the discussion.
Oh, I don't know which platform that you use to read it, but I was like thinking about this. I also commented in the chat that it's like really interesting how fandom facts are portrayed on fanfictions, and how they're like a reflex of some snips and sneak peeks of like every content of this. I mean, if you go with One Direction that I was like talking about, um, every fanfiction of One Direction, it is gay, it is straight. Don't does it doesn't matter because they always have like facts that are part of One Direction fandom lore, like having like older women and are like, I don't know, Louis loving carrots, or like there's like there's facts that I think there's very, I don't know. It's interesting how when you go to a alternate universe and they want to put in on this. I mean, um, when you go like to a mafia, I'm really into mafia sometimes with the straight ones, but it's really interesting how they want to use that same archetype and the same effects to portray Harry and Louis, but how they want to portray it without losing the plots and all the context around. So um, I don't remember the name of the fan fiction, but it was like there was this fan fiction that was like really good. I can't remember the name. It's in Portuguese. I'm sorry. I remember there was in Spirit fan fictions, and it was Zane and Lauren from Fifth Harmony, and and they were in the context of awards show. I mean, they were going to receive some awards. Like, I don't remember if it was Teen Choice Awards or something like this. MTV. I don't know. But there was like this. It was supposed to be a crack fic, and they were like Lauren and Zane was like both the mysterious archetypes of each group. So they're trying to build it being funny, but it sounded really tough because it was really funny, but it really sounds tough to build it. Like if I wasn't the author, because how can you put the two mysterious archetype people to do a crack fic? Crackfic. I don't know, my pronunciation is wrong now, but it's really interesting to see this type of thing. And how I'm we're talking about singers. I'm better with singers, okay, because of my obsessions. But I already got to read fan fictions of TV shows like K dramas, and I don't know. I read a lot of fan fiction about a lot of things. I'm kind of obsessed of this, but it's kind of funny how when you don't use like when you have like a singer background or something like this, they use interviews and parts of the movies or the TV shows or the series just to try and portray this persona that they create in their minds. I think the best part of the real people fan fictions is they show us there these celebrity persona that they have like built with media training and everything, but also they couldn't sometimes this persona breaks on camera, so you able to see like a tiny bit of this, and people still use it to build their fan fictions, to write their fan fictions. And I think it's really interesting how they mix. Oh my goodness, it's my English, but it's really interesting how they mixed it to do all this content. I'm sorry, I was talking. I was going to say a little one more thing, but I forgot. But I mean, I don't know if you could understand me. I'm sorry. I just got lost in my thoughts. I'm sorry.
Okay. Um, Rafa, do you have any questions for us to discuss?
I guess I have one. The usage of Baudrillard and the idea of, you know, I totally forgot the name in English right now. The concept of simulacra. Sorry, the idea of simulacra in general, I think, is very useful when we were talking about RPF fan fiction. And I guess my main question or discussion topic is the usage of some of the more classic uh, writers to discuss such a not contemporary but very present in our day discussion. Because while you were talking about Baudrillard in your presentation, I kept thinking about Foucault, and I kept thinking about how he does this discussion of discourses and how we are, our society is run by discourse, and there's always a fight, between superior and inferior. He doesn't use those words, but a different type of hierarchies. And I guess I kept thinking about it because it goes back to RPF in the sense that you have this more well accepted discourses about it, and we have some not as accepted. And there's also always this idea of resistance, in the community. So some of the ideas of a real person keep getting brought up and also disputed. So some people may think Harry is the nice guy. And I keep going back to this because this is something that I kind of want to write something about. It is something that really got me when you were talking, and it just stuck in the back of my brain. But I have a dissertation to write, so I can't lose my focus. But seeing that idea of someone in fan fiction being disputed and being discussed in so many ways, and also overflowing the fan fiction world and becoming an idea of a person, and being projected and using memes and being dispersed in our society. And that's something that really stuck to me because I guess the main discussion point that I have is, how do you think this proliferation of ideas of real people impacts the way we perceive celebrities, how we can have such a broad perspective of a celebrity nowadays when we go to different ideas of them through fan fiction, and also how they sometimes go against it in some ways. So they show us that they're not that person that we are reading in fan fictions, and they emphasize how they are not that person. So yeah, that's my main question, I guess, and thought that keeps going back to me whenever I think about your research.
First, I want to say thank you so much. Like everything you said about my research, it really means so much to me because it's such an interesting topic, applying like classical thinking to such a modern day concept. When, RPF discussing this stuff in like an academic space is very, very new. And I'm very glad that we're having this conversation. And yeah, the characteristics applied to celebrities and people that we read RPF, and when they go against that, it's kind of a juxtaposition to what we perceive and what we think and what we're internalizing of them. And when we see that they're not acting in accordance to that, it kind of changes like the brain chemistry. Like, do I have to change the way that I think about this person, or is the person that I was thinking not who I thought they were? At the end of the day, these people we're reading about, we don't know on a personal level. All we know is what we're reading and what we're consuming of them, what they're putting out purposefully. But fan fiction is a beautiful thing. That's what fans do. They create like imagery of these people, even though it might not be true, but they're taking some sort of truth from what they're perceiving. Um, and yeah, it's a very layered and conversation, and we're never really gonna understand fully how we like perceive a celebrity is never actually going to show us who they actually are, how they are around the people they love the most. But it's kind of fun to see like the different aspects of who we're reading about and who we discuss about, who we like idolize. It's really, really fun to see. But it's a difficult conversation to have when you're perceiving a person and they're acting in a different way. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I just remembered something that was a big part of my COVID era, which was fanfic related to reality show characters. And I guess that deepens this
Yeah,
barrier, because in a reality show, theoretically speaking, they're
showing
themselves,
their authentic
Yeah,
selves, but it's still very much edited and like words are
exactly.
like, yeah. So we really never know these people on a personal level, even though we think we do. And it's it's really, really fun to like create, but it's at the end of the day, we really don't have a full understanding of who these people are, and perceptions change of people all the time. Um, like for example, Harry Styles going from this like straight, like masculine, like baby in One Direction to this very like flamboyant person who expresses himself and doesn't put a label on his sexuality. See, perceptions can change so quickly. And I think fan fiction just adds to that. And you see it over time with the way that different like people, like celebrities, are portrayed within fan fiction over time.
That's great. I love it. um, Jill, would you like to add or bring some kind of question or something like that?
Yeah, I just wanted to like see how you guys perceive, like fan fiction, and how it like has affected your perception of celebrities, and how that like or how you go about reading in everyday life, how that has changed your perceptions of academia, how talking about this in an academic space has changed your perception of RPF.
Yeah, something that I didn't mention during the presentation, but I think it's an interesting thing that happens a lot here in Brazil is those kind of jokingly ships. You know, so we have, for example, Selena Gomez and Brazilian host who's like 50 something. And they're a couple, you know, and there are a bunch of fan fictions about them. And I guess I never read them, but I guess the idea of this ship and the idea of this connection just made me like Selena Gomez so much more. And it also made me like him so much more because it's something that it's funny to me, and also it's like a very fandom idea and a very, you know, a nurse joke, you know, something that I'm into, so I get it. And if you get it, you get it. But it's also that proximity that kind of goes hand in hand with parasocial relationships, but also at the same time, it also allows me to dissociate the character from who the person I'm reading about is. Sometimes, you know, when it's someone that I actually know a lot about, I tend to avoid reading fan fiction about them because I feel like it just makes me confused sometimes. It's kind of a cognitive dissonance, you know. So it's a bit of a complex feeling to me, specifically. But whenever I'm reading about people that I don't know as much about, it usually makes me want to know more about them. So I guess uh, this is a very different perspective from for most, I guess, people that read fan fiction about real people. But it also it's something that it really defines my experience with RPF. Usually, because after I read about Larry and I saw a lot of the controversy about it, I kind of stopped reading those types of stories. And then when I saw some new ships that were very improbable, like a ship that happened in a reality show in Brazil as well, that they were like they literally hated each other and people started making them like a couple. And that was so funny to me that I was like, okay, I'm gonna follow this and I'm gonna go and understand how the idea of their relationship goes. And they kept quoting how their discussion was, you know, that their arguing was actually one of them being disappointed about the other not, you know, dating them. So it was a very different idea, but at the same time it made me more curious, you know. So I guess what I mean by this is that I totally agree with you. Those perspectives, they're always changing. And at the same time, I think a fan fiction can bring you a whole new perspective to someone and can actually make you see them in a different way, but also not necessarily them, but you know, the idea of them becomes more interesting to you, you know. So it's really something that I would love to read more about. I haven't read a lot of academic works on RPF. I hope to read your your research in the future. But the one thing that I keep seeing whenever I read about is usually, you know, representation and representation of sexuality. And again, I think it's a very complex way of understanding representation, because I don't think that's the place to do it. You know, I guess I agree that we should do RPF and include change the sexualities of the characters. That's not a problem for me. But I guess original stories or stories with characters are more interesting to bring representation, in my point of view, because you know that's you know, you're representing in a way. But that's a whole different conversation, so I'm just gonna leave it with I really enjoy your work, and I think there's a lot of layers of RPF that are still not touched, you know. So maybe we have to peel the onion and try and find more ways of seeing how we relate to celebrities in RPF. So yeah, thank you for your participation as well.
Oh, the question that they did was really, really good. And I'm also go a little bit with Rafa because I agree with her most of the parts. But I also had my own experience on this. When I started with fanfiction that I told you, I was only 13 and I was like really, really young. And back in the day, it was like I'm 1 year older than the actual year. So it was like 2014 or 2015, something like this. And the internet was still a place that there was like there's no like this discourse of something being right or something, it was kind of a jungle. So it was really easy to go the lula with this. I don't know how to say another language, but you really go into this. And I started with Percy Jackson, but if you see the fandom of Percy Jackson, how they treat the fanfictions and the characters on it is quite the same way that we treat like outside of this the fanfictions with real people. It's this intense sometimes. So, and when I went to One Direction on sections, I started with the straight ones, and after I went with the gay ones, but also sometimes it was really difficult for me because I was still too young. I was a teenager and had a lot of hormones, and I was exposed to a lot of contents that I'm not like. It wasn't the cleanest ones, It wasn't nothing for the general audience. And also, we had a lot of discourse that was like, I don't know. There was always so intense and made you feel so close to them, like because you saw them on the screen. Now it means that you are on a relationship or a citizenship. I mean, it's more like a friendship. I forgot the words, I'm sorry. But it was like you are like connected. So it was one side thing, but the parasocial relationship there was really more intense. I remember there was times when I read some fictions that killed Harry Styles or killed Willie Tomlinson, and I was really into it. And I remember that I cried. I remember that I went in Twitter to and tagged the members, and oh my god, are you dead? Are you dead? I was like really into this because that's about that's a part of this. But because I went to another sentence that was like book fandoms, and I was able to distance myself from this and actual reflect on it and say, okay, this is just part of an entire industry and an entire culture of this. I mean, I think fan fictions are our way, like I'm gonna be a librarian here. Okay, I'm a proud librarian. I'm gonna be a librarian here. But when you start reading, I always loved reading, but people tend to say that reading is an individual activity. You can only do it by yourself, and this kind of gets lonely. So when you read fan fiction, the thing is, you get closer to your community because you comment on this, and people are like replaying it in real time, and they're not in the typical model of a published book, so they're more close to your reality and experience as a person. So there's all this building around, all this background to go with this. But I mean, uh, I think the point of distance myself from real people film fictions was really because of the joking ships that we have in Brazil. We have like oh my god, it have a lot of things. People really like fan fictions was always a niche fandom kind of culture, something like this. But in Brazil, I felt like by reading the papers and the words about it, I think Brazil had a different angle to see the fan fictions or experience it, because um, we did joke a lot about fan fictions, and it's just blow out all of the things. So the Selena Gomez and the Brazilian host thing was like something that blow out and just put the fanfiction on spot. And because it was joking and kind of impossible, it made it like have a little reflex on this and like, okay, we can distance yourself from this. I have a lot of another joking ships. Like there's this famous cook show. There's called Mais Você, More You, in a rough translation, but it's like a lady, and she has a bird that she speaks with the birds. It's like a toy bird, but it's really funny. And they made this fan fiction on Wattpad. There was like this lady that is like she's ancient. Okay, she's really old and, don't know, and nobody knows her age. But she was with being shipped with Shawn Mendes, and there was a love triangle with this other host. There was Faustão. There is the same host that goes with the ship with Selena Gomez. I don't know if I'm just being clear myself, but it was really funny because the name of the bird is Louro José, and there was a part in these fanfictions where Shawn Mendes is trying to kiss this ancient old lady, and this old lady is like really rightful, like saying, "Oh, please don't! The Lord is gonna hear you." And they're like, "No, they won't." And it's a bird, and it's like a really, really, it's a really random scenario. But so it helped me to do this distance. I mean, there's this own experience, this there is unique experience, but yeah, it really helped me on this, and also changing platforms also helped me with this because I don't know if you it's just realize it or start to write it about it, but depending on which platform you're reading your real person fiction. I don't know how to spell it. I'm sorry, this is too much English for me. But depending on this platform that you're assessing and reading on it, you have a different behavior for this. I mean, if you go like to Tumblr, people are like, okay, I mean, they still a little bit more explicit contents, but they have aesthetics to go through. If you go to Twitter, they're pharaohs. If you go to TikTok, it's like they are losing their ancient text of the fandom lore. And you know, each platform has his own unique, oh my goodness, my tongue, his own unique way to behaving and to perceiving this real person fanfiction. So I guess that's it. I don't know if I wondered too much, but I guess I put it out.
And me answering the question. Actually, it took me a while to get into RPF. Uh, I think it was like back in 2007 with the actors from Supernatural, like way before it became this huge thing because I'm that old in fandom. So I started reading with them. Then I had some kind of time reading. Um, I don't know if you guys remember him, Adam Lambert, when he was doing American Idol. It was a huge ship back then. Him with the winner, Chris Allen, I think, and everyone knew him as Cradon. And after that, it took a long time, and then I didn't like anything. I only went back to RPF nowadays with BL. But yeah, I never had a problem with it. So it was just another type of fanfiction for me. I never like saw it with like, oh, this is bad, etc., etc. So yeah, that's it. Mine is not that exciting, but yes, yes, Lace.
I'm sorry, just to interrupt you. I mean, for me, you're gonna keep continue talking, but I just forgot to say something that for this is a recently case, but I don't know if you know it, but there's these agents that is called Hype. There's for a market K-pop agents, something like this. And you see, uh, we know that fanfiction is still a niche part of culture, of most part of this cyber culture, but they were recently exposed because they are using the Wattpad fanfictions to I don't know how to say it in English, guys. Como é que fala medir? I'm sorry, I just trying
To
to.
measure the popularity, I
Thank
guess.
you. Yes,
Yeah.
to measure the popularities. That were just okay, but so people they were like going to Wattpad and like featuring all the fanfictions that were like from Stray Kids or from BTS, and they're like, okay, this member here, he has like a million fanfictions on his name when he was when oh my goodness, and he's the protagonist of the thousand of them. Okay, so his popularity is bigger than this other guy. Okay, so let's promote more this guy that has more fanfictions on his name. And also like, oh, and the name of this idol, you have a lot of ABO fanfiction, so let's put this guy in an ABO aesthetic, like wolf thing or jungle thing or something like this, because this promotes. And this like they are doing they skim the fan service just to through fan fictions with real people fan fictions. I think it's just this is going to my master's degree work, but I thought it's like I don't know if you know if you knew it, but it's really interesting how they're perceiving this. And people also like jokingly said they should have gone to AO3 because it's easier to filter all these fan fictions, but it's also um, a really thing to say that I'm sorry, I'm just forgetting words, but it's really the impactful. I don't know if I'm speaking correctly, but how fan fiction was once just for the fandom to consume and produce, and now they're being used to do like marketing type of works and promoting things and all of this just to get the industry to be bigger.
Very good. Well, it's already very late. Sorry to got you till up to now. Uh, I hope you really enjoyed this conversation, right? I feel like you can do this one more time later if you want. Try another types of themes because it was incredible to talk to you, and I'm really happy you accepted my invitation. All right, and for everyone who stayed here up to now, I'm really glad you guys are here, and thank you for the attention, for speaking. All right, and I hope you come back. All right, so I wrap up the uh, our round table here, and I hope you guys have a nice weekend. Like this is Friday, so let's relax this weekend, and that's it, guys. I'm just gonna close here.